Hello, my name is Lloyd and I'll be demonstrating a walkthrough of how to break into the HackTheBox Blunder machine. So the first command you want to use is Nmap. This will let you enumerate all the services and ports that are open on the host. So we're just going to let this run here. And we see that there's an open port on port 80 TCP, which is usually associated with HTTP, as well as a closed port on port 21. So we'll navigate to that site and see what we can see. So as you can see here, we have a simple website where it's just basic block stuff and whatnot. There's not really much to navigate to that's of importance. There's not really much in the source that provided much help aside from these couple lines here, because this refers to the version of the software that's running this, which is Blooded. I believe that's how you say it. And is running on version 3.92. That's important for later. To that end, we can actually search for exploits for Blooded, and we can say there's actually a couple relating to this. If we search for specifically 3.92, we can see that there's two exploits around the authentication brute force mitigation bypass and the directory traversal exploit, which is both exploits we'll be using in order to get access into this machine. So before we break into the machine, first we need to figure out how to actually get into the machine, how to log into it, so to speak. Now you can use dirbuster, dirb, whatever you please. I prefer using gobuster in this case, but just using the dirb wordless. Now this whole command will output any files that are found matching the file extensions .txt, .html, and .php to the files gobust.out, as well as to standard output. Now this will take a little bit, so I'll stop recording for now and let you know when it's done. Alright, gobuster just finished, and we can see a couple files were found. There's a couple of nodes. There's admin here, which has a status of 301, which means that it redirects to somewhere else, as well as todo.txt, which returned as a status 200, which means that it was found. That said, we can try to navigate to both of them. So /admin leads us to the admin login interface for the Blooded instance, which is a CMS. If we go to todo.txt, go to todo.txt, we can see that there's a couple to-do list tasks here. So FTP was closed, which was as indicated in the Nmap scan. Old users, we can see that later on. And inform Fergus that the blog needs new images. It's pending, as well as updating the CMS. So we'll just keep those in mind for the future. So I tried using admin and Fergus as my two users to try and brute force the login. But if you do it for too much, it actually locks you out of logging in properly for about 10 minutes or so. However, it was found out that there was a vulnerability that allows you to mitigate this effect and allow you to infinitely try the password over and over again without getting locked out. And it was just a simple script compiled by Rastating. And it's just a simple Python script that modifies some of the cookies that are actually sent to the Blooded instance in order to bypass this effect. So the main thing that you have to implement for this script is you have to give it a word list. Now this word list can be generated however you please, but I prefer using CEWL in order to generate the word list. The word list can be generated on any site, but since we're dealing with Blunder, we can actually just make a word list based off the contents of that website. So I'm just going to put in the CWL command here, and it's going to do a quick parse of the web page and put it into a word list. we check the word list, we can see that there's a bunch of different texts here about words that exist on the site that could be passwords. It's fairly simple, but it'll work for what we have to do with it. Now that I have this file, we can import it into the Python script with a simple open statement and then adding it to the word list. And I already tried this with admin previously. It didn't work, so I tried it with Fergus since that's the only other name we have. And then we can just simply run the script. So let's give it a try. Let's call this Blunder. And then as you can see, the Python script will just go on and try all the passwords in the list without being throttled. Eventually, it'll get to the password that is there, which is Roland-chain. So if we try this password with the combination username Fergus and password Roland-chain login, you can see that it works just fine and that we have access to the admin interface of the Blooded CMS. Now, unfortunately, there's not much we can really do here, which is why we'll have to use another exploit in order to break into the system itself and get shell access. So going back to that other exploit we found, the Bloody 3.92 directory traversal exploit, we can actually use this in order to break into the machine now that we have the required information from it. So we can use Metasploit since there's a module that exists for it already, and we can break into the machine. So if we just search for a Blooded module, we'll see that we have the upload images exec exploit. Basically what this exploit does in very simple terms is that it abuses the image upload function so that you can execute arbitrary code within PNG files and then rewrite the htaccess file in order to get shell access. So let's use this exploit. And then we'll just let it use the default payload. And then we'll see all these options that we have to set. So let's start off with the first one, which is just blooded pass, which is Roland-chain in this context. And then the blooded user, which is Fergus. The rhost, which is 10.10.10.191. And the lhost, which I'll just set to ton 0 since that's my interface. So once we have all these configured, we can run the exploit. And as you can see, we have a interpreter shell session. And we are logged in as the www.data user. From this point forward, we can do some lateral movements. So first we'll figure out which directory we're in, which is var www blooded 3.92 bl content/temp. Now, since I already did this part, we can fast forward a little bit and we can go straight to the www directory, and you can see that there's a newer version of Blooded within another folder, which is because of the upgrade that was mentioned. So if we go into this folder, and we see the contents, we can see there's a couple folders and files. Now going into the documentation of this, you can actually find all of the passwords are stored in one file within the bl content directory. Bl content, and then into another folder called databases. And within the file called users.php. So we just cat this file. We'll see that there's the Hugo user here with a password located here. Now it's pretty apparent that this password is encrypted in some sort of hashing algorithm. So what we can do is to figure out what it uses in the source code. So I did some research and I found this recovery tool, which is used officially by the Blunder developers. And down here, this is where it actually does the process to change the password. So it actually hashes the password in SHA-1 using a password and a salt. But there's no salt given in this user. So we can reasonably assume that's just a SHA-1 hashing algorithm used. So if we just copy this password hash, and then we go over to a SHA-1 decryptor, whichever you prefer, you can see that it decrypts to the password 120 with a capital P. So if we use this by going into a shell, we can switch to user Hugo, which you can find, by the way, by concatenating etc password. There's a Hugo user here. You can switch to Hugo by using the password 120. And as you can see, if we change to the home directory and we do a quick who am I, it'll be listed as Hugo. At this point, you can simply list the files in the directory, and you can see that there's a user.txt file, which means that you can just concatenate the file and get the user own on this. This is the user hash that you can submit to HackTheBox. Finally, to get over to root level access, we can use the sudo-l command and get the context of which Hugo can run commands as. And as you can see, he can run bin bash as all users except for root, which means that we can't do the traditional just sudo ls root/root.txt. That won't work. So we'll have to use a known vulnerability with this specific sudo version, which is 1.8.25p1, which means that we can bypass this check entirely by having it run under the context of root anyway. Here's the specific exploit by itself, which is, you can find it on exploit.db under the ID 47502. Basically, it's simply running this string here in order to get root access. The bash shell interprets this command as running sudo-u 0 bin bash. So if we run this, we can simply get into root. So let's give this a try. Oh, and there you go. As you can see, if we change to the root directory, and then run a quick QAMI, which we don't really need, but I'm going to show anyway, is that we're under root now. And if we do a quick ls, we can find the root.txt file, grab the hash, and submit it to HackTheBox. And that's really it. So thank you for watching my demonstration and walkthrough, and have a nice day.